I was reminded about my childhood incident when she asked me to speak on sustainability and governance. We were living close to a fertilizer factory and maybe around 6 kilometers. Every evening we would get this pollution smell. And one of the days, our school had taken us to this factory as a picnic, just to see what is, how they make fertilizer and so on. And I being one of those people who constantly get the smell in the night, when they release those gases. So very innocently I asked this person, you are polluting the environment, what are you doing about it and so on. Just I was in the 6th or the 7th grade, I asked this person. So this person was quite shocked, that a small kid can ask such a question. And then he looked around and he said, look at the green we have here. And believe me, they were all walls painted in green. So I was very much reminded about the plants on the wall. So I said, this is all green. He said, see, everywhere is green. That was the end of that dinner. So that was the beginning of understanding of sustainability, what industry do and so on. And I must also confess that, in my own experience, as part of the corporate governance, how corporates look at this area of sustainability. And for every Wipro and Infosys, we have hundreds of opposite cases. So for every one company that is working on sustainability, environment, social responsibility and so on, we have more than 100 companies which are polluting the environment and other aspects. So that's why it becomes very important to understand where does this all start. Whether you talk about governance, whether you talk about social responsibility, all starts at the top and so on. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I'll share some of my experiences, dealing with corporates, where we stand and what are the issues, what they talk about and so on. Over the years, of course, governance has changed all over the world. And in India too, we have moved from the first generation to third generation. The first generation I dealt with purely legal issues, structures, looked at profits and so on. The second generation of governance dealt with little more engaging with stakeholders, more towards employee engagement and address the customers and so on. But now we are moving towards the third generation where we talk about sustainability and we are looking at environment, social responsibility and so on. And the more worrisome aspect is, do we deal with it in silos? We have a corporate social responsibility division which, completely talks about, 2% as we have in India now, 2% of the profits to be invested in CSR activities. Or we are looking at environment and, how do we actually build this into the strategy of the organization? Okay, that's what becomes important to us when we talk about the third generation of corporate governance. And when we look at the sustainable business, we talk about governance, social responsibility and environment. And I think from morning we have been hearing more towards the environment, and of course Saurav and others have also spoken about social responsibility. Typically if you look at this, all professors like this 2x2 chart, so I thought we should include it here. We talk about stakeholder value, we talk about shareholder value, and we talk about these two silos which really create, we can't create pure stakeholder value and we can't have pure economic value for the shareholders. So these are two extremes which we can't ignore. Business of business is business, so we create shareholder value, etc. So this is prime. And we can't look at purely stakeholder value, which is at the cost of shareholders. So why would a shareholder want to go about looking at social enterprise or the environment and so on? So these two are totally looks like opposite. And here you also have companies that neither create stakeholder value nor they create shareholder values. And what we are looking today is this, which companies that create sustainable value, which includes both the shareholder and the stakeholder into picture. Okay. So broadly we are looking at this group of companies which creates sustainable value, looking at both the shareholder and the stakeholders. And what is in it in terms of good corporate governance? Why do we say that creating sustainability in organization and corporate governance, what is the imperatives for that? Like I think Rama also mentioned in her slide, that the first or the starting point for all activities is the board of directors. Unless you are able to get a buy-in from the board, you are able to get a buy-in from the top management, it's very difficult for us to enter these two spaces of both the environment and the CSR areas. So many times, whenever I have dealt with boards, the first question they ask is, what is in it for the company? When you talk about environment, they say, what is in it for the company? Okay. The second thing they would ask, okay, we are able to make this kind of investments. What is the return on investment for all these initiatives that we are taking? So what has happened is, unless you are able to justify these investments in terms of quantity, in terms of what is the return on investment, etc., it has become very difficult, to engage with the board and make them understand why we need to invest in these activities. All explanation, quantitative, qualitative. The moment you give qualitative, it's like what she said. We know all this, but in terms of bottom line, how is it going to affect us? In terms of giving us return on investment, cost-benefit analysis, are you able to give us some concrete proof as how this is going to affect the company's performance? So this has become one of the biggest challenges in terms of corporate governance, particularly convincing the board and the top management to look at sustainable business in a proper way. And coming to the other aspects, if you build it at least as a part of strategy, like Saurav said, if you are able to demonstrate that this is in some way going to reduce the cost and it is good for you because it's also going to impact the bottom line, then at least there are people willing to listen to these ideas, but otherwise it becomes very difficult. And lastly, but not the least, it's all about business opportunity, and whether you talk to them about the environment in terms of things like energy, carbon, everywhere the green sign is very important. That's the dollar sign, and if you are able to justify all this, they are perfectly okay to go ahead with this. So this has broadly been my experience in looking at sustainability, particularly when you have to explain to the board why they should go ahead with these kinds of initiatives. Coming to the advantage, or coming to the challenges, like she said, the most important one is in terms of measuring and monitoring. The measurement part particularly becomes a challenge for the companies. How do we measure? And therefore this global reporting initiative which is there has given us a lot of ways to measure some of these areas, some of the initiatives that we take, and more than 140 measures they have got, I think 79.
And then there are core indicators and additional indicators.
Yeah. So overall there are ways to measure both qualitative and quantitative measures that are there, and the challenge here is how to measure each of these initiatives. Okay, so that becomes the biggest challenge in all these areas. Secondly, the linkage between sustainability and strategy, and sustainability as a driver of innovation, growth. So this is another challenge. How do we inbuild this sustainability within our strategy? Not take it up as a separate item, but build it as part of our strategy, build it as part of our innovation and growth. So this is the second most important challenge that organization faced. And lastly, but not the least, is in terms of disclosure. So while many companies take these activities, do these activities, how do they disclose? Where do they disclose? Okay. For example, looking at Wipro and Infosys, or ITC for that matter, ITC has, all of them have put these data on their website, and you also have these reports through which we know what are the initiatives taken. But very rarely, some of the Indian companies which do take initiatives are not disclosing these anywhere. So this is the biggest challenge we find in terms of what are they doing in terms of reporting. So if you see, I work in the areas of disclosure and look at voluntary disclosure and other disclosures of corporates. And comparing 2002, where companies, what kind of disclosure they made in the year 2002 to comparing to, let's say, in 2012, you find the number of the items of disclosure and the quality of disclosure that include vastly. But still, when it comes to sustainability in terms of reporting on what initiatives they have taken on environment or on CSR or other activities, the amount of disclosure they have is very less. So either they are feeling shy of disclosure, or they don't want to disclose, or what is the reason? So that is one of the biggest challenge in terms of disclosure. Okay, so broadly these are the 3 or 4 challenges that we find in terms of sustainability, which is how do we convince board, how do we measure these items, and lastly how do we disclose. So triple bottom line reporting, as he mentioned, this takes care of all these areas, reporting in terms of the environment, CSR activities, plus the economic profits. So there are a lot of disclosures that we can make in all the 3, and there are a lot of models in terms of whether it's the GRI initiative or the others, which talk about what are the disclosures that need to be made. And lastly, I want to leave with the 3 challenges or the 3 way forward. How do we go about doing this? One of the most important initiatives is this green investors. I don't know whether again they are just a sham or what, but at least these investors, the fund managers particularly, who manage more than $30 trillion of investments, have signed a UN agreement which talks about investing in only sustainable business. Okay, just to that is one of the initiatives. So I'm not sure whether how they follow what kind of UN agreement which talks about investing in only sustainable business. Okay, just to that is one of the initiatives. So I'm not sure whether how they follow, what kind of measure they take, and so on. And similarly, investors, many of these private equity investors are always looking out for sustainable business. In terms of what kind of environment they are in, what kind of products they produce, are these products harmful, and so on. So apart from economic profits, they claim to look at all these areas before they invest in these companies. So going ahead, this is one reason why we should look at sustainability, because our investors want to look at. The second challenge could be whether we should do it proactively or whether laws should take care of this. So whether there should be some regulation in terms of reporting, regulation in terms of what initiative we take, or whether we leave it to the best practices of companies. So that is one way to look at it. The third area, what I thought should be the focus should be in terms of either the management school or schools, by education. Apart from employee education, where you talk about it, we also want to sensitize students, at all levels in terms of looking at the environment, looking at sustainability, and so on. And what is interesting, one of our professors who teach sustainability, at the end of the class, or at the end of the course, apart from other things, what they learned was switch off the lights before we go. At least it was a good learning. That is what they summarized. So I thought that we should go beyond just switching off lights rather than looking at sustainability. In terms of performance, again, academic people, we are always interested in knowing whether, particularly, I am also from finance background, so we always try to link sustainability or corporate social responsibility or environment related initiatives, whether it has any impact on the markets, whether market sees these favorably or whether there is a positive return to the shareholders because of these initiatives. The results are always mixed, and no conclusive evidence exists whether they are going to really give you any benefits, particularly from the market returns perspective, which is again a governance perspective. So with this broad understanding of sustainability and governance, I would like to stop here. I think we have far exceeded time than what was given to us. Thank you so much for the patience.
Mr. Time check, Rama, how much time do we have for Q&A? 5 minutes?
To you only. That's about, I may be wrong, but what I concluded out of your discussion that BOP business model is unescapable, unscalable.
Yeah.
So, how do you think? Probably